Hello everyone and welcome to this NatSpec Techability webinar on Microsoft accessibility. Today we're going to be going through the main features of Microsoft's accessibility offers. So we're looking at Windows accessibility settings, something called User Experience Virtualization, Immersive Reader, Dictation, the accessibility settings in Edge, and also touching on accessible documents. Just to set expectations, we're not going to be looking at Microsoft accessibility settings on all platforms. An example of that would be something like Microsoft Immersive Reader being available on Edge on an iPad. We're also not going to be doing demonstrations of accessibility settings today. We're not going to be looking into in-depth creating and reviewing accessible documents, even though I've said we will touch on that. Also desktop customization and shortcuts, which are really useful for accessibility, and an exhaustive list of Windows accessibility features. It's just an introduction to Microsoft accessibility. We do have a built-in accessibility course which will cover this and more. So if you need something more in depth, then just let us know and we'll make sure that you can access that. So starting with Windows 10 accessibility, as I know that I've spoken to some of our colleges and you're still using Windows 10. So just to mention that to access the built-in accessibility settings, if you press the Windows button, start typing in settings, go to settings, then you're looking for the ease of access center. There is a shortcut of if you hold Windows and then press U, and that'll take you to the same place. And I've included the link there, which will give you more details on the options that you can do within there. For Windows 11, very much the same thing, but it's called something different. So again, we're hitting Windows button, we're going settings, and this time it's just called accessibility. Same again with the Windows U as a shortcut button. So what are the accessibility options? Well, they've split them into different sections. First of all, there's vision. And I think they've prioritized this in the likelihood of these accessibility settings being used. So text size is a very popular change that you can make to accessibility. So we're looking at text size just that appears throughout Windows and your apps. It's something that you can really quickly and easily do to make your computer more accessible to people with print impairments. In terms of visual effects, you're looking at anything that moves really. So scroll bars, transparency, animations, and all along that side that can be quite distracting or quite difficult to access things. The mouse pointer, you can change color, size, and some touch options as well. The text cursor, which is where you're writing, so you can see where you're writing, you can just make sure that that's a bit clearer to read in terms of thickness and color and things like that. You can also use the magnifier, and the magnifier has been improved a lot in terms of quality when you zoom in. The image is much better than it used to be. They've made big moves and big kind of progress there. So you can either use that in a window or you can magnify the whole screen, and you can change the zoom increment, and there's some other changes there as well. In terms of color filters, lots of people have color blindness, so it's really good that those are included. You've also got grayscale options there or inverted colors. A similar kind of theme, you've got contrast themes, so you can have color themes for low vision, light sensitivity, that kind of thing. And narrator is a tool that means that people with either low vision or no vision can access the computer. The computer will talk to you and tell you what's going on the screen, what your options are, and help you talk through what's going on there. It's quite a skill to be able to use it, but it does make computers accessible for people with visual impairments. Hearing options, you can change the audio to mono audio and alter the audio notifications. The hearing devices will work with Windows, but sometimes your laptop or your device itself might not be compatible. So that's something to check. Just because the settings there doesn't mean that you can always use it. Captions, Windows has live captions, which means that anything that is being put through your device can also be captioned. So that means if I've just got some videos there that I'm just watching on my laptop that haven't been captioned, it can automatically caption them. So that's a useful inbuilt tool. Interaction, we can use speech, very similar to a webinar we've covered recently. Voice access means that you can operate the device with your voice to use commands. Voice typing is writing in different documents. Keyboard, we can look at sticky, filter, and toggle keys. So sticky keys might mean that if I wanted to hit Alt and F4, rather than having to hold both buttons at the same time, I could tap Alt and it will turn Alt on, and then I tap F4. So for people with certain physical disabilities, that's really helpful. Filter keys means that as I'm typing, if I slip and hit a button that I didn't mean to, it filters out so that you have a time before it will recognize another key press. There's also toggle keys, and the on-screen keyboard is actually really useful for a touch screen, and you can alter that and adjust that as well. For mouse settings, you can use mouse keys, which means you can use the keyboard as a mouse. You can also change the speed and acceleration of the cursor as you're moving it around the screen. And more recently, they've brought in eye control as well. So you can use an eye tracker device and have everything built in there to work with text to speech as well. Okay, so we can do all of those settings, but how do we make sure that the people that we're working with will have that whenever they log on to different devices? So I suppose we're imagining a situation where a student has perhaps done all their settings, so they've spent a while with staff to kind of work through what they need in terms of visual options and audio options and various different things that they want set up to meet their accessibility needs. If they go to a new computer, do they have to do it all again? And that's the question. And the solution for that is user experience virtualization, a catchy name, I'm sure you'll agree. But essentially, it's a feature in Windows 10 and Windows 11, which means that they'll be able to have those settings that will follow them when they log on to a PC in that network. So it means that the appearance, language, font size, etc. are stored on a network and applied when the user logs on. Makes a lot of sense. And users with and without disabilities benefit from changing font size, icon size, mouse pointer size, speed, and keyboard settings. Without it in place, it means they'll have to change the settings each time. It helps to make sure that people are more independent, can concentrate on studies or work, and increase efficiency and save time. So how do we do it? So IT teams should consult with the Get Started with UEV documentation. NatSpec members may be able to get in touch with other colleges who've implemented that. If you just drop us an email, techability@natspec.org.uk, if you're a NatSpec or Carton member, and we'll try and put you in touch with someone else who's done the same. If you're a member of JISC who supports further education with IT kind of issues, you might be able to get in touch with them as well through your account manager. And it is a certain amount of work to be able to set up, so you may have to kind of talk and have those conversations with leadership and your IT team, but it is very important in terms of accessibility. It's one of the most important things you can do as an organization to ensure that you have that accessibility just baked in and they're available for people to use. So good luck if you're trying to implement that. It's a really valuable thing to do. One of the biggest steps forward in recent years has been Office 365 Immersive Reader. So it's built into Word. That's probably the most common platform that we're going to access this. And it has text to speech. You have lots of different text preferences, so you can change the default text size, increase the spacing. They've got accessible fonts built in that you can choose from. You can change the background and the themes. They've also got grammar options as well. So you can highlight nouns, verbs, that type of thing. For reading preferences, you have an inbuilt picture dictionary, which is really useful. You've also got some translation options there as well. Now, there are some differences online or desktop as to how it will look. The picture on the right-hand side is the bar that appears on the right-hand side, which gives you an idea of what your options are within Immersive Reader. That'll look a little bit different if you're using the desktop version of Word, but the same kind of tools will apply. You can get Immersive Reader on the Home tab, and that applies within Word if you're looking not to have to click through and find it. You can actually have it there on your Home tab, and we've got a useful link there that will help you to do that. The great thing is as well, it's built into OneNote, Outlook, Office Lens, Microsoft Teams, Forms, Edge Browser, and Minecraft Education as well. So you've got that consistency where students aren't having to use different tools in different spaces. They've got access to the same tool in the different spaces. And thinking about how we could use that, we could be using that in Outlook to compose emails to people. We could be using that in Microsoft Teams when someone sends something through to make it accessible. So there's lots of different platforms we can use this on. We've recently done a webinar on dictation and voice commands, so I'd refer you to that. If you go to YouTube and look for Tech Ability webinars, you can find that webinar. I did want to mention though that this is an accessibility tool in Microsoft and you're well catered for. So you can do that in Word for Windows and Mac OS. You can do that in Word for Web. You can also compose using your voice in Outlook. So you could write an email using your voice. It's available in OneNote and also PowerPoint. I think I use it the most in PowerPoint, where I'm doing the alt text for images, which is where you have text to explain to people what that picture is. And then I can very quickly write in there what that picture is in a descriptive way. I find that's a really useful tool for me. Microsoft Edge is worth mentioning on its own because they have their own accessibility settings that are discrete from the Windows. So if you go to settings and accessibility, they have three different kind of categories. Make Microsoft Edge easier to see, make Microsoft Edge easier to use, and keyboard. I feel like they broke their pattern there of how they were naming this. Make sure to check out appearance settings as well. There are some appearance settings that also cross over and cover accessibility settings, so they're very tied in there. And remember Immersive Reader, we've just gone through that. That's a really useful tool. It's available on Edge. So that means that if I go to a website, I can turn on Immersive Reader and then have that site read in that accessible format. So the first category might make Microsoft Edge easier to see. We can highlight an outline around the area that we're focused on the page. We can change the default page zoom, which will make everything larger and easier to read. We can change the page colors, the associated settings there. We can open system preferences for captions, which will open a separate window to look into that, and turn off custom scroll bars. We can also get image descriptions from Microsoft for screen readers, which will read out those descriptions for us. We can have a prompt to ask us before closing a window with multiple tabs. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I have, and you can lose a lot of work very quickly by doing that. You can have a mini menu when selecting text, which will give you some options of how to interact with that text. Downloads menu, just so you can follow that through and see when and where the file is downloading to. You can add accessibility actions within supported menus, which will just add in some extra navigation and control settings that you can use there. There are also settings that you can change in terms of swiping between pages. So that's useful if you're accessing this through a tablet or a touchscreen device. Keyboard settings are quite short. You can navigate pages with a text cursor by pressing F7 as a shortcut as well. F12 will open the developer tools. Now that's quite advanced. I don't think it's really the level we're talking about today. That's more if you wanted to have a look at a website and see what accessibility they had built in. And those are your settings within Edge. Now we've talked a little bit about the settings themselves, but something that I think is really important to mention, often when we're using Microsoft, we're creating documents. When we're creating documents, we can have all those settings, but unless we make them accessible documents in the first place, people aren't going to be able to access them. So this model is called Sculpt by Helen Wilson, published in 2020. We've got the link there, so when you get the slides through, you'll be able to access that yourself. And I quite like it because it simplifies things and gives you the most easy, the kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of accessibility. So if we're changing the structure, we're creating headings within Microsoft Word or something like that, it not only makes it clearer to read, it also makes it clearer to navigate. We can jump around that document quicker and we can see what's there by inserting a contents page. Color contrast speaks for itself. If we don't have that strong color contrast between any text and background colors, it can make it really difficult to read. In terms of use of images, we want alt text on all the images. That means that for anyone with a screen reader, they can hear what's going on with those images. Links, we've actually shown that on this page. The hyperlink that we've got is everyone can sculpt for accessibility. If you hear that read out loud to you, you know what that link is. If it said click here, you don't know where that link's taking you. So it's about describing your link. Using plain English is fairly clear, and tables don't always read well. So we want to make sure we're using simple tables without merged or split cells to improve accessibility. So if we create accessible documents, it can make a massive difference. I know I've said it to quite a few times, but my go-to is to say to organizations, if you create a folder with some templates of accessible documents and show people where they are, show people how to use them, having those templates starts people off on an accessible footing, and then they're more likely to go on and either use these templates or understand the features that were available in those templates that show them how to do it. So accessible PowerPoint presentations, accessible Word documents, whatever it is, you can create those templates and just make it a little bit easier for people to follow this. Microsoft has an accessibility checker. So that means that after today, when I've completed finishing this webinar, I'm going to go back through my slides and just check that they're accessible. So it's built into Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. In general, you can access this by going to the Review tab along the top of the bar and then check accessibility. And it's a page with a blue outline of a person in front of it. And that will take us into that accessibility check. The one exception to that is OneNote, where you go to view and then check accessibility instead of review. And what we're looking for then is we'll be checking through our document and seeing, have we got alt text on all our images? Have we got the reading order right for screen readers? Have we got legible text? And it's great that it's built into all those. So have a quick go with it, have a see, and just check if your documents are accessible. We're coming towards the end of the webinar, so if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or put your hand up. I'd like to refer to one link in particular. to help you if there's any particular setting that you want to look at. So AbilityNet My Computer My Way has a resource where you can select the category, the adjustment, the condition, the symptom, the operating system, and you can narrow down what platform you want to look at in terms of accessibility options. So on the example on the right, we've just gone to operating system Windows 11 and it's listed the accessibility settings below. We could also have a look at that in Android or Apple or Windows 10, whichever platform you want. And each one will take you through to a article that will explain how to use that. It's a comprehensive reference for settings on various platforms. It's updated regularly and it's free. Really useful for helping to build on what you've learned today. So all I can say is take what you've learned today, get started. You can share this webinar, you can share these slides and advocate for these things to be used in your organization. If there's something that you want to cover in more detail or you feel that you want some demonstrations, then just talk to us and we'll see what we can do. We run regular courses, but we can also put on custom courses for whatever your needs are. Sign up to the TechAbility newsletter through bit.ly/natspecmail, all lowercase, or you can use the QR code there. And that'll make sure that you have access to all our upcoming webinars, all upcoming training courses, conference, and any other resources that we're creating. Email us techability@natspec.org.uk if you've got any requests or any feedback, or you just want to let us know about how you're getting on with all the things that we've taught today. So I'll leave the room open a little bit for questions, but I'll finish the recording there. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.